I'm here at the top of Millbank Tower with a fantastic view with Quentin McKellar, who's the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Hertfordshire and the co-chair of a task force on the food economy. Quentin, do you want to tell us what we're doing here today?
We're here today to celebrate the outcome of the Food Economy Task Force. This is a task force which you and I and Justin King set up 2 years ago in order to look at the challenges which face the food economy in the United Kingdom and to come up with recommendations which would help us address some of these challenges in order to try and ensure that the food economy in the United Kingdom is the best in the world.
We don't ourselves, those of us that work in this industry, recognise the scale and importance. The statistics are very compelling. 3.7 million jobs, around 1 in 7 of all the jobs in the economy.
Justin, why is this industry so important to the UK?
The scale of our impact on employment, but also this is an industry in which we already lead the world. But of course, if you're leading, there's a danger that others are going to catch up, and we need to kick on if we're to maintain that leadership position. And it's an industry that's a net contributor to our economy, around 100 billion of economic value added and net exporting. And there aren't too many industries that can say that.
So you may ask, with such a successful industry, why did we do this piece of work? And I would suggest 2 reasons. Firstly, at the agricultural end of the agri-food sector, we are losing our competitive place globally. And secondly, of course, the population in the world is due to expand. And in order to feed that population, a population whose prosperity is set to increase as well, it is likely that we will need to increase food production globally by about 70%. We've got many recommendations, of course, but the 3 major findings that we've come up with. Firstly, the food economy in the United Kingdom is fragmented and that we have to think of ways to integrate it much more effectively. Secondly, that universities and businesses do not have a relationship which is nearly close enough. We need to get that much more effective. And thirdly, that the research outcomes, both from universities and from our research institutes, have to be more effectively translated and utilised by the agri-food business.
I've been in the food industry for, I suppose, nearly 40 years now, and for all that time we've been talking about how do we build better cooperation across an industry which is by its very nature fragmented.
I think we need to come together to have a more unified voice, particularly to young people who won't have heard of us. Lots of invisible businesses in our industry. We need to make sure that they're made more visible by working together.
In the report it talks about the whole industry from lab to landfill, and that was one of the challenges of the task force. It's such a complex and diverse industry. Do you feel that the task force got under the skin of it properly? We identified that there are something like 200,000 businesses involved in the food chain in the United Kingdom, huge number of businesses, and indeed 40 representative organisations simply for the manufacturing sector alone. If we could join the industry better, integrate it more effectively, we'd have a much more efficient and effective system in the UK.
No, I consider myself someone that knew and understood the industry, but in the process of the 18 months or so that I've been involved in this task force, found out so much more, so many hidden gems and secrets. It's been an eye-opener for me.
And one of the main points that came out of the recommendations was a single minister for food, which I know you have a very strong opinion about. Yeah. Would you like to explain why that's so important to you?
Well, having dealt with government over many years, it's clear that when we go talking on behalf of the food industry, we don't talk with anywhere near as unified a voice to government as government likes. And therefore, what we think we need to do is to step up our game in terms of talking with one voice, and that's one of the key recommendations of this report. But I think we also need government to talk towards us with one voice too. We need if you like, one representative for the industry inside of government. And there are other examples in recent years, perhaps most notably, because I think you were involved in it, the digital minister, where we cut across many ministries and having one minister who's there to speak for us, to be able to engage with those different ministries on our agenda, I think will make a huge difference for the industry, but most importantly, will help government deliver its agenda.
As Justin said, from Sainsbury's about stacking shelves or labouring in a farm field, it's about employing modern advances in technology and knowledge and creating businesses that can really thrive in the UK.
No matter which part of the food supply chain companies or individuals represent, the importance of finding the right talent, developing talent, it's been repeated every single part of the process, every single work stream. It's come through very strongly.
One of the particular issues which we considered during this report was the use and utilisation of agricultural land at a landscape level, which we felt was deeply important.
And I think it's fair to say that this recommendation, indeed the findings that flowed to it, no pun intended, were discussed very much with the backdrop of the floods of a year ago.
And the issues are many, of course. So the fact that badgers don't recognise the border between Wales and England is pretty obvious. The use of fertilisers, the use of pesticides on crops creates a very obvious rationale for looking at a broader scale than simply single farm level.
What's the best way for universities and businesses to collaborate with government on this landscape level work?
Utilising and integrating the experts within universities with those from business, but then ensuring that government has the strings to enable them, and I think they do. They actually have, if you like, the incentives to make that sort of landscape level decision work.
And we would therefore encourage, particularly in this case, DEFRA, to think about the instruments they have already at their disposal and applying them at a land level.
I think it's an easy first step here. Actually a portal or something that allows businesses to find that research. But secondly, the actual research institutions to find businesses that want and are hungry for that innovation.
Anything which brings businesses closer to universities and allows universities to more effectively ensure that the research they produce has impact has got to be a good thing. And as I see the National Centre for Universities and Business as, if you like, the brokering agent in the middle, if it can create a portal which allows businesses firstly to identify within the huge spectrum of universities where particular expertise sits or where particular research is being done, that's going to give them an enormous advantage.
The challenge, as always, will be how do we make sure that something happens after this, and how do we translate particularly the recommendations into action.
What we must make sure is that the report is acted on. There are some bits of it which I think we can act on as a self-help organisation through the National Centre for Universities and Business, which we in universities can certainly act on in terms of ensuring that the research we do is more effectively translated into product and activity in the agriculture and food sector. But I think also that government can act on, and of course that business can act on. And I hope that that will be the outcome of the huge and wonderful piece of work that's been done by the task force.